you not, what's the point of the serpent? Do you not know people like this? Do you not know people who will try to confuse you, who will try to lie to you, who will try to hold back truth from you, who will try to deceive you? Of course we know people like that. Why? Because there's a serpent in the garden. The place is supposed to be perfect. The serpent got into the garden. You don't think that the serpent can get into your life? I don't care what walls you build around yourself. The serpent finds a way to get in. Serpent of doubt, serpent of lies, serpent of manipulation. Some of your parents have tried really hard to keep you sheltered and keep you protected. And yet, somehow, you found those videos online, didn't you? Somehow, when you were really young, you saw those cartel decapitation videos, didn't you? They tried really hard to keep you sheltered. But what happens? The serpents get into the garden somehow, some way, no matter what they do. Why wouldn't your parents just monitor your online activity? How many of you scoff at that and there's ways around that? Of course there are. There's ways for the serpent to get into the garden. I don't care how perfect it is. I don't care how high or how low you build those walls. The serpents are going to get in. We also notice that we ask that question, why do I have to go through this, but we never ask it on the other end. Why are my parents like this? And we almost ask it rhetorically, God, why are they like this? Rather than, why are they like this? Because I know one thing for sure. When I become a parent, I am absolutely certain I will never fill in the blank. I will never spank my children. And then you're going to find yourself at some point going, holy crap, look what I'm about to do. Yeah, but there's something really important to what you're saying there, that there's something that we look for in all of these things, which is why we develop doctrines in the first place. We're looking for some kind of a meaning behind it. There's a meaning that we're looking for behind it, and that's really, really important, because in order for us to be certain about something, there has to be something real that we can hold on to. And this is why I'm always really, really suspicious of people who come along and take something really obvious and then try to contort it and turn it to say, well, it isn't always like that, to try to make you doubt even just the most basic, fundamental, objective realities. So, for example, last year, there was this controversy, I'm sure some of you heard about it, that 2 plus 2 can equal 5. 2 plus 2 doesn't necessarily equal 4. And we know that this was something probably true, that 2 plus 2 can equal 5, because the person who told us this was a person who was getting their PhD at Harvard. And this person explained to us in their article that at Harvard, he's learning that mathematics is not as objective as we typically think that it is. You wouldn't understand. You don't have an advanced degree from Harvard. If you ever see somebody who brags about Harvard, just keep something in mind. I was accepted to Harvard. This jackass was walking around with a lumberjack shirt in the middle of San Diego, was accepted to Harvard. So don't take it to me like it's that big of a deal. It happens, sometimes by accident, I assume. But this is a person who's getting a PhD in mathematics. The whole idea of mathematics that you're trying to figure out, I don't know what his specific study was, but it can be used to figure out the foundations of the universe. We're using mathematics to understand the natural world. It's the whole point of it. And I would ask you, if any of us sat there and said, that's interesting, so 2 plus 2 can equal 5. And let's say that you actually believe that bullshit. I'll ask you if you really believe it. You got 2 planes you can get on. One plane was built by people from Harvard who believe that 2 plus 2 can equal 5. And there are people who said, 2 plus 2 equals 4. Shut up, let's go. Which plane are you going to get on? The theoretical plane that theoretically could fly under certain very specific circumstances, or the one that actually has been proven to fly for quite a while now. If any of us, if we're truly rational, we're going to get on the plane that we know 2 plus 2 equals 4. And while we're there, maybe we'll talk to our friends. Did you know that sometimes 2 plus 2 can equal 5? We can talk about it while we're flying on the thing that we know actually works. And I'm highly suspicious of people. And by the way, when you get to the end of his article, he's not actually saying 2 plus 2 can equal 5. Essentially what he's saying is if you change the definitions of certain things, and you change the critical concepts of certain things, you can see it in such a way that 2 plus 2 can equal 5. Basically, there's no reason that we have to use the word two to denote this many objects. It's technical. It's something that you would come across like in an early philosophy class somewhere. It's really not that big of a deal, but people don't understand that. They see the headline, then they see the short sub-headline, then we go, huh, well that's interesting, and then we go on and we tell our friends about it. But none of us really believes it. But that's part of the problem, is that we get used to saying things that we don't really believe. Things that we know intuitively are not necessarily true. And it can only be considered true if we change the concept of things and change the definitions of things. And it's amazing, by the way, because once you can get someone to start questioning those sorts of things, well, now you're taking away all of the belief systems. Like, for example, 2 + 2 = 4. Mathematics isn't real. It's just your truth and my truth. Well, what happens if the truths do this? What happens if they fight? Hey, shut up, okay? Oh, okay. Yeah, so anyway, 2 + 2 = 5. In other words, if there's your truth and my truth, well, then that means that there is no such thing as truth. What happens if your truth is different from my truth? Isn't there one that's going to be right and one that's going to be wrong? No. Shut up. Don't ask too many questions, because it makes sense if you don't think about it. Right? Questions. Good. But you see, as soon as you start asking questions now, all of a sudden those doctrines are shorn of their strength. Those doctrines are no longer viable. They don't hold up under questioning, which is why people who hold weird positions will try to stop you from asking questions. They'll try to stop people on the other side from talking. This is why they'll follow you through hallways and chant slogans to shout you down. This is why they'll try to dox you at work to get you fired. This is why they'll try to do everything in their power to harass you, because their argument can't harass you. Their idea can't harass you. Only they, as individuals, as people in the world, operating in the world, in a real physical world, can harass you. And imagine if the world believed what they believed. They're trying to get you fired from your job, and your boss just says, well, that's just their truth. You can't live by it. That's the problem. Like, if you understand, like, for example, if you're religious, if you're in here and you're religious, let me ask you, do you genuinely believe that there's some sky god somewhere with a beard who made all of this and actually cares about you? Look at the size of the universe. You really think that this sky god, whatever, actually has time to think about you, and all of your prayers actually make a difference? You believe that? Okay, that's a hell of a thing to swallow, but okay. Anybody in here, if you're an atheist, let me make sure I got this straight. You believe that in the beginning there was nothing, and then it exploded. And then here we are billions of years later, talking about it. You believe that there was nothing that exploded. Okay. You see the problem. If you're religious, you have to wrestle with some. If you're religious, you have to wrestle with some challenges in your doctrines. If you're an atheist, you have to wrestle with some challenges in your doctrines. When you go through and you're just like, no questions at all about God's existence. Have you ever read Genesis 1 and then read Genesis 2? There's two different accounts of creation. Why are there contradictory accounts of creation? Oh, maybe you've never read it before, and that's why you're so certain about it. But once you read it, you can look at it and go, well, hold on a second. This does, why do these things seem to be different? Similarly, if you're not religious, if you're an atheist, you have to wrestle with all kinds of problems in your position. How is it that we have no examples of something organic coming from non-organic material, and yet here we are? How is it that we have no concept of where consciousness comes from, and we're no closer to figuring it out after 2,000 years of research? How is that possible? How do you explain? There's a number of things that that have to be explained, and that doesn't mean they can't be explained. All I'm saying is if you haven't heard challenges to your position, then you don't really know your position. You're only certain of it because you don't understand it. Once you start to understand it, now you start to realize, there are some weaknesses in it. That doesn't make it wrong. And this isn't a way of saying, well, everything is your truth and my truth. All I'm saying is that if it's important enough to guide your life by, or if it's an important enough belief system to have, it's important enough to investigate, to find out about. There are objective truths. They're out there. We're just afraid of calling these things by what they are. Oh, hey, speaking of afraid of calling things by what they are, transgenderism, huh? Ooh, that's where my last class went silent too. So let me get this straight. There are men who have periods. And you believe that. There are women who have penises, and you believe that. Okay, never mind. Let me get this straight. There are people who are so uncomfortable in their bodies and that they suffer so much emotionally that they're willing to go through very difficult surgeries just to be understood. You don't think that they're real? Okay. Do you understand each side of it now? There are smart and good people on both sides of all of these issues. The problem is when we come along and we don't understand the other side, or even our own position really, we put on blinders and we just start name-calling each other. There are very smart people who believe that the whole transgenderism thing is complete garbage. There are very smart people who believe the whole transgenderism thing is just something that's becoming more known now because we're able to. Which side is it actually? Who knows? But the point is that this is the aim of it all, meaning. This is what people are looking for, some level of meaning in what it is that we're talking about. When you say that, if you insist on being called by another name, you understand why people would do that? No. I know. It's funny. I hate when people call me Mr. Scanlon. It drives me crazy. I think you're talking to my dad. And I'm like, I hear Mr. Scanlon. I'm like, where is he? You found him? I just feel weird just calling you Scanlon. Oh, well, then you want to be formal, then call me Dr. Scanlon. That feels weird too. Well, now you're getting a sense of it, aren't you? Of how strange it is for some people to call somebody else by a different name or a different sex. I had students one time who were saying that, like, about asking if I would call people by different genders. I go, I just make it easy. I refer to people by their sex. And I was like, brain reboot. But shit, that wasn't in my sociology book. Let me go back and look again. But having said that, like I said, I don't like being called Mr. Scanlon. I prefer Scanlon, and yet most of you still call me Mr. Scanlon. I've told you that a few times before, and yet I still get called Mr. Scanlon. And I wonder, what if I told you to call me Mrs. Scanlon? I wonder how many of you would be afraid not to. Why? Because there's a power thing that's involved there. But having said that, I told you my first name?
Stephen.
No.
John.
Yeah. My first name is John. My whole name is John Stephen Joseph Slane Scanlon. My mother was a woman of great ambition. So why do I go by Stephen? My dad's name was John. My brother's name was John. My sister's name was John. And then there's me, John. And I'm like, so they had to know who to yell at. So that's why they called me Stephen my whole life. I've never been called John. And yet when I go to, I don't know, I order something, let me think. I go to the doctor's office. It's got my name on there because that's where my insurance stuff is. They go, John? I go, all right, I know who you're talking about. I don't sit there and go, actually, it's Stephen. They write down Stephen. Stephen with a PH, as in PhD. I'm not that guy. Why? Because it's just, I have to make a determination in my own life, is that worth getting into all that hassle about? Now, if you're somebody who really does see yourself as something else, it isn't just an inconvenience like it is for me. It's a matter of your actual existence in life. You follow? It's how you fit into the world around you. And so before we poo-poo things like that, maybe we should understand it. I'm not saying we should accept it. I'm not saying we shouldn't. What I'm saying is that once you understand it, then once you understand it, these things start to lose their power over life. And so at least the certainty of it starts to wane. But the important thing is about the meaning. Why is it that we now have so much more of this today than we've ever had before in the history of the world? Now you might say, well, because it's more known now. No, it's actually really not. There are other things that are going on. That's the thing that we can try to figure out. Not to say it's right or wrong. I'm saying we can figure out what this means. Because it's the underlying meaning of things that really starts to matter. Like with religion, why does it matter? Why does it matter? It matters because so many people are concerned about the state of what happens to us after we die. That's the real question about religion. Religion isn't so much about anything else except for what happens to us after we die. Because you're going to spend most of eternity dead, not alive. And so what happens to us after that really becomes a matter of importance to us. Less so about what happens to us on this world, and more what happens to us after that. You know, romantic feelings. Why do they mean something? Because these are the things that give, that make life worth living. This is what you start to feel when you feel like, hey, wait a second, I'm accepted by another human being. Why is that so important for us? Because it tells us something about the nature of us as humans. That we're social creatures, and not just social creatures, but that part of what it is for us to be human is to receive the acceptance of other human beings, be recognized as a human being alongside other people. Let's say that again. Be recognized as a human being alongside other people. And if you understand that, now you start to understand so much of the transgender debate. How is it that people are trying to want to be recognized as a human being among other people? Now maybe the way that people go about it, you're making a mistake. When you try to tell people, you can't do this, you can't do that, you have to say this. I don't have to do anything except for stay white and die, man. Everything else is a choice after that. But if you don't, we're going to, yeah, how do you think that's going to end for you, though? If I grab you and I force you to do something, in fact, screw that. You guys have to be in class on time every day. You must. So how's that working out for the school? There's something about it that right now you guys are here for free. You got some fucking idiots who have their heads down and think it's not going to cost them anything. Like, you couldn't be doing this at home? You know, how many times do we have to have that conversation? And yet, same people who 2 years from now will be freaking out because they applied to universities that they're going to pay a bunch of money to, what you're doing for free right now, you're going to be paying $20,000 a year in 2 years to do. And your heart's going to be broken because certain places are going to say, no, we don't want your money, never mind. And they're going to choose somebody else to take the money from. And you're going to be heartbroken over the fact that you didn't get into some of these places. And what the hell? Why? Because you want to be accepted. That's what it really is. We want to know that we are good enough to be accepted to places, among people, among places. And so it's a strange thing, man. So we're looking for that underlying thing about what everything means, because everything means something. My friend I told you about earlier, went on that one date, she got cans of tuna for their picnic so he could have some type of meat that wouldn't be offensive to her. And she made him a tuna sandwich. That's cute, right? And then yesterday she sent him a picture because she took the cans of tuna, and when they were where they were, they stole a little plant out of Old Town. So if you go to Old Town and you see a plant missing, and she planted the plant inside the cans of tuna, which she made a little pot out of. Took a picture of it and sent it to him. Oh, now this means something, huh? Yeah. It's not, and you could just look and go, it's a plant in tuna cans. No, you understand what that really, really, really means. And it's interesting, too, because he took off on a trip. He's going to be gone for a week. And it always seems to be the way things happen. You make a connection with someone just in time to leave. You know? Why? And that means something. That means something. It means that maybe things happen to you at a time when you least expect them to. But when you most need them to also. Because remember, you don't always get what you want, but you can get what you need if you just pay attention to it. It's there. It's there. We looked at this question about religion. What does it mean? Why is it so important to us? Because it means something. And by the way, it doesn't just mean what happens to you after you die. That's a question it answers. But if you look at, for example, the story about Adam and Eve that I referenced earlier in Genesis, it's about a person who, two people who live in a garden and they get tricked by a snake, and then they get kicked out of there. And you can look at that and say, oh my, so you believe there was really a place like that two people actually lived? Who cares? Maybe, maybe not. But what does it mean? And it means so much more. And that's why the story persists for so long. You know the story? Adam and Eve? God makes this garden, Garden of Eden. It's perfect. It has everything that humans could possibly ever need. Not want, but everything that humans could ever possibly need. And he puts this dude in there, the first person, Adam. Guy's just chilling. There's no death in the garden. The garden's perfect, which means that Adam was probably a vegetarian. Had to have been. Because there's no death, which means there was no meat. And so he said that the animals hung out there. I mean, imagine that. You're sitting there eating an apple, and you're sitting next to a bear. And the bear's just chilling with you because there's no death there. He's just, start talking in bear language back and forth. And there's like a little rabbit that goes by, and he's not worried about anything because there's no death, there's nothing they've learned that they're going to die. They're not going to be killed by either you or the bear. So you can walk over there, you can pet the bear or whatever, and then pet the rabbit, everything's cool. And so Adam's got everything he could possibly want. And by the way, truthfully too, everything he could possibly need and want. Both of those all together. Except for, except for, he wants some companionship. Isn't that weird? If you believe that, again, Adam is chilling, and who's his companion? He's got animals, but who's also his companion? No, she ain't there yet. God. He's able to chill with the creator of the universe. What's up, God? I'm assuming he's tall. He must be, right? What's up, God? And God just like, what's up, Adam? And they can walk around together and chill. And then one day Adam's like, you're cool and all, God, but I really want to have like another human being, But there's a problem. What does that mean? That means something. It means that we have to commune with things that are like us, people who are like us. For us, imagine if, by the way, keep this in mind, I guess the question that we can ask ourselves later on is, what happens if Eve never gets made? So then God says, okay, fine, I'll make you a helpmate. Takes one of his ribs out, and boom, creates Eve. And she shows up, and Adam's all, oh great, now I have a human companion. This is wonderful. Next scene, Eve's hanging out by herself. I thought you wanted a companion, dude. Why is she walking around the garden by herself? Why, I guess Adam had enough. He wanted to go hang out with the boys before the boys were created. And so now she's walking around by herself, and here's the really important part of the story. They're told that they can eat of any tree in the garden, except for that one. And then, of course, as humans, what do?
We get curious.
Yeah, we start staring at this thing. We get curious about it. What? This one? Don't touch it. Oh, I'm going to touch it. This one? No, God's like, oh, don't touch it. That's what we do. Like right now, if I tell you, do not think about a red apple. Whatever you do not think about a red apple. Anybody not thinking about a red apple at this moment?
A green apple.
Good man. And so, Eve is walking around by herself, and a serpent approaches her. At this point, the serpent has legs. So the serpent approaches her, and he's like, so, garden, huh? She's like, yeah. And you look around. No, Adam. Don't see God either. Hey, so, so did God say that you can eat of any tree, right? He said you can eat of any tree you want. And she says, nope. I can eat of any tree except for that one. That's important. Does the serpent know what it actually said? Oh, yeah. He's trying to confuse it. 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 4. It can equal 5, right? And 2 plus 2 equals 5? No. 2 plus 2 equals 4. We can eat of any tree except for that one. Okay, so now we know something. She knows the truth. She knows the truth. And then he's like, but did God really say that, though? Like, is that true? There's your truth, and then there's my truth. You see how that can... No. God did say that. I was there. I heard it. I know for a fact that's what was said. Oh. Okay, but do you know why he said it? I've got some special knowledge for you. That 2 plus 2 equals 5. You ready for this? Here's why. Because he knows. He's not there. He knows that on the day that you eat of that fruit, you will become a God like him. You will know good and evil, just like him. And she's like, really? That's enough. He tries 3 separate attacks. Tries to confuse it. Tries to ask if this was really said. And then finally tries to manipulate it. Says, well, here's why, though. Do you not, what's the point of the serpent? Do you not know people like this? Do you not know people who will try to confuse you, who will try to lie to you, who will try to hold back truth from you, who will try to deceive you? Of course we know people like that. Why? Because there's a serpent in the garden. The place is supposed to be perfect. The serpent got into the garden. You don't think that the serpent can get into your life? I don't care what walls you build around yourself. The serpent finds a way to get in. Serpent of doubt, serpent of lies, serpent of manipulation. Some of your parents have tried really hard to keep you sheltered and keep you protected. And yet, somehow, you found those videos online, didn't you? Somehow, when you were really young, you saw those cartel decapitation videos, didn't you? Or whatever, those torture videos. They tried really hard to keep you sheltered. But what happens? The serpents get into the garden somehow, some way, no matter what they do. And some of you, I say, why don't your parents, why wouldn't your parents just monitor your online activity? How many of you scoff at that and there's ways around that? Of course there are. There's ways for the serpent to get into the garden. I don't care how perfect it is. I don't care how high or how low you build those walls. The serpents are going to get in. That's an important lesson that's there. And so, of course, notice, by the way, that the serpent didn't, at the very end, lie. He just said, because he knows that when you eat that fruit, you will know good from evil. You'll become like a god, and that you'll know good and evil. Did they learn about good and evil? Oh yeah, because that's when death enters the garden. Because death enters lies. Why? Because truth is life. Truth is the very thing that sets you free. Truth is the only thing that you can depend on in the whole universe. If it's a bet between it's you versus the truth, I love you, but I got to pay you. But I'm going to bet on the truth because the truth always wins out. The universe doesn't care about what we think about things. The universe is indifferent to our ideologies and our belief systems. The universe is going to do what it does because the universe functions on truth. It doesn't matter what definitions we give things. It doesn't matter what we call things. The truth is going to bear out at some point. And so the truth in this case is juxtaposed by lies. And lies are the complete opposite of the truth. And so there's no surprise that when the serpent wants to enter your brain, when the serpent wants to enter your life, it's going to plant seeds of doubt and mistrust because it doesn't want you to follow the truth, whatever the serpent is. Now, I tell you guys the things that I tell you, and I talk to you guys the way that I talk to you, first off, because I respect you guys as people, as human beings. I hope you realize that. I don't sit there and look at you and go, oh, look at the children. Let's sing songs. Although we should sing more in this class. But I respect you as individuals. Why? Because one thing I can be absolutely certain about, and here's a true statement. There are serpents in the garden, man. And someday you guys are going to hold your first baby. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, the baby will be yours. You know what I mean. It'll be your baby, hopefully. Hopefully you're not running out of the supermarket with it. You're going to hold a baby and you're going to look at it and you're going to say, I want better for you than I had. And if someone were to say, oh man, I'm thinking about kidnapping your baby, think about how visceral your reaction to that would be. Hell no. I will die before I let anything bad happen to this baby. And that will be your thing where you're going to see it as your mission in life is to protect this baby. But I'm sorry to tell you, there are serpents in the garden. And no matter how much you try to protect your children, serpents will enter the garden. So what are we left to do? Well, what I try to do with you guys is to let you know there are serpents in the garden and prepare you for them. I don't come in here and throw a box of snakes at you. But I do present you guys with ideas that, again, if I do my job well, you won't know what I think about any of this stuff. My job is not to tell you what to think. My job is to teach you how to work through those things that you think so that you can get perspectives from both sides. Because if you're only ever given one side, well, what's going to happen? Those serpents are going to enter the garden eventually. I want you to see the serpents for what they are. I want you to figure out what are the serpents and what is the truth. What's the lies? What's the truth? And that kind of goes back to that primary thing. I respect you as human beings. I think that eventually you'll show up to the truth if you know how to look for it. And that doesn't mean you're going to agree with me. In fact, you'll probably never even know if I agree with you or not. People are usually surprised to find out what I really think about things. They ask me afterwards. But that's not the important thing. The important thing is that you develop the ability to deal with those serpents. Because right now, you have to deal with the serpents in your life. And someday you're going to have to deal with the serpents in your children's lives. And you're going to have to teach them how to deal with the serpents in their lives. Because they are there. They're in the garden, no matter how perfect it seems, man. So hopefully that story, those few lines, those few passages now make a hell of a lot more sense. It doesn't matter if you're religious or not. That story, tell me where else you get something like that. Where is the story you get that from? First Spirit asked me, one of their questions up here was, do aliens exist? So let me get this straight. No, actually, sorry, I'll save that for a minute. Do aliens exist? Well, who cares? No, but it means something. It matters. Of course it matters. Because think about people who really want aliens to exist. What are they really hoping for? Someone to show up and save us from all of our problems. What is it that people pray about to save us from all of our problems? You know, alien worship it's a religion just like anything else. Simulation theory. We're all living in a simulation. People who believe in simulation theory, that's basically that's creationism for nerds. It's the same thing, it's religion for nerds. So let me get this straight. You believe in some sky god with a beard who made everything. Let me get this straight. You believe in some neckbeard who lives in his mom's basement, plays on a computer, and creates all of this. It's just the same thing, just for where people are putting their worship. And so, but my point of it is that all of these doctrines, all of these things that we're so certain about, you know, we're only certain because we don't understand them. That doesn't mean you should have doubt about everything. This is not a way of saying, therefore, everything is subjective, nothing means anything. No, there are stronger and weaker positions. We just had to recognize that there's almost no absolute 100% position. Something can be absolute 100% true, and we just can't defend it. Maybe we don't know how, but that doesn't mean it's not true. And same as on the other direction as well. And so, seek to understand the things that you follow. Seek to understand the things that you say that you truly believe in. Because you never know. Maybe at some point you're going to have to defend them, or maybe at some point you're going to have to pass those beliefs on to your children. And if you really think that those are the stronger ways to go, and you really care about your children, it seems like that would be a hell of a way to keep the snakes out of the garden. So, questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Happy Tuesday.